Fight, 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 fight.
Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Tuesday. Whew. It's been a very hectic day for me, like in a weird way. Trying to get sleep where I can. I had a bunch of stuff to do during the day and just little spurts of time to sleep. Have you guys ever done that where you're just sitting there like trying to grab an hour or two of sleep where you can and it just doesn't work? Like, oh, this is great. Well, no, it does work. Like you get to sleep, but you still feel like garbage because it's fleeting. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, how do we do this? Today's election day. For those of you who are on the off-peak schedule of elections, I guess. And you know, there's a bunch of bitching about it for multiple reasons. Hey, wait a minute, Cedar. I see you in chat. You were supposed to come to the Minnesota meetup, and you didn't. How dare you? There's a bunch of bitching about it on the internet. Now, I slept through most of the day, on and off, and when I wasn't sleeping, I was driving somewhere. So, I haven't really seen a ton of it, but the main one that I've seen a lot about, obviously, is Ohio's decision to solidify a right to an abortion in their constitutional amendment. So a state constitutional right to abortion. Now, this is something. This is something. And, you know, there's a lot to be mad at with that. If you're pro-life, obviously, if you value the life of the unborn, if you believe that the unborn are just merely pending humans, you know, then you care. Like that's a two-step process that a lot of people forget about. The whole like anti-abortion, pro-life side of the debate is, first you have to believe that it's a value positive of life, and then second, you have to also care sufficient to desire to sustain that life and not have it terminated. Not everybody's there. Some people acknowledge the first one. They go, yeah, I just don't care if a baby is killed in utero because something about the cervix or whatever is magical and makes a baby alive. Or not alive. I shouldn't say that. No. Something about that passage of the cervix makes the baby worth protecting versus terminating. And there's arguments about it that aren't the most unreasonable. They just tend to conflict with the ethics of their opposition, right? Like that's the whole point of this debate is one side has a belief or an ethical system that holds value in this thing, and the other side has an ethical system that places a higher value on other things. And so you can make reasoned arguments, but until the ethics are level across both positions, you're not going to get very far. But that being said, if you adhere to that two-step process, and you believe that it is a life, and you subsequently believe that that life deserves protection over other considerations, then you're going to be very frustrated with the Ohio decision to cement abortion as a constitutional right in their state constitution. But that's kind of the states' rights issue. And it's an interesting one because nothing ever prevented this from happening beforehand in a weird way in favor of abortion. But I think that's a little bit of a backwards position when we get into why, and we'll discuss that kind of at a philosophical federalist argument, which is weird to do in the middle of my show sometimes because, like, I try to keep it light and silly a lot of times, but there are, there are deep issues of federalism involved, and just sort of the philosophy of governance and rights and how they come down, and then the hierarchy built into federalism of what law is supreme and what law holds value over all others. Um, in a weird way, enabling abortion at the state level, I believe, under the way we look at federalism, would be considered more protective of rights than solidifying a right to life at the state level, which is very strange to think about. I think that's a backwards value in our country. And if that doesn't make any sense, it's because I'm kind of noodling through it as I talk, but it will make sense by the time I get around to the topic, unless I fail, which I'm going to do that too. But we're going to talk about it. It's kind of the caveat of states' rights. And then we'll talk about, what can be done about that if you don't like it. And should anything be done? That sort of question is pretty important, I suppose. But that being said, we've got that issue. But that's not the only ballot measure that succeeded. One of the ballot measures was enshrining as governor an egregious offender of individual liberties during the COVID lockdowns, one of the most egregious offenders in a hostile state to his governance. And they just picked him again because they're like, yeah, gag me harder, daddy. Because his name is Andy Bashir, who I keep mixing up with Dr. Bashir from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, because Lady Raggets is watching through Deep Space Nine right now. Like whenever I go into our room and she's watching TV to kind of wind down, he's on there. And I'm like, but that's Julian Bashir. That's a different Bashir and a different origin of Bashir's. Either way, Andy Bashir is, he's one of these Democrats that pops up every now and then where the excuse for his shitty governance seems to be, but he's so handsome. And I just don't know if people are fundamentally retarded, but that has been the excuse for very shitty Democrats for a long time. Obviously, Republicans don't get that treatment because none of them are handsome. They all look like gnarly old white ass cheeks with acne problems. But some of the Gavin Newsom or whatever, they're like, he's so handsome. And Bill Clinton was like such a late, which is weird to think. Like Bill Clinton doesn't look, I don't know. Women love Bill Clinton. May they see how he plays the saxophone. Never mind. This seems to be an ongoing, recurring theme with Democrats. So Andy Bashir gets reelected in Kentucky, a heavy Republican state, as a Democrat, who not only is a Democrat, but also is a giant fucking piece of shit, which makes it difficult to figure out how this is working, but it does. So we had that happen. And then I think that OnlyFans chick or whatever got elected, which I don't really like. People can be up in arms about that. I think that's a matter of time that you're going to have adult media workers pop up in elected positions. They've tried all the other positions. But yeah, it's an interesting day in that respect. Other than that, though, I don't really know how these elections went. I don't care that much. States are shitty. People are shitty at voting, and they take on shitty issues, and they're like, yeah, this is great. But what do you do about it? Like you either vote. Most of the stuff isn't happening in your state. You can only vote on things that are there. And I tend to pay more attention to some national stuff than off-season voting. But hey, other people don't. That's great. That's cool. That's for me. Is at this point, I'm like, well, guess we're just gonna burn everything down. But yeah, we got to talk about that a little bit. But mostly, we're gonna be focusing on the abortion issue. I might bitch more about Andy Bashir. I mean, We did it too. Not this year, but last year we reelected Walz. I'm not saying Minnesota's better, but Kentucky, you don't have the excuse of being the biggest fucking communist state in this entire country than I do. It's not my fault. It's your fault, Kentucky. Anyway, we gotta. Okay. After that, we're gonna get into this Seventh Circuit decision on the Illinois assault weapons ban. Because the Illinois assault weapons ban has been upheld by the Seventh Circuit. And really the thing that we've got going here is this ongoing conflict with the Supreme Court's ruling in Bruin. Hey, wait, Sean, aren't you in Ohio? Isn't it your fault then? Sean, slayer of babies. But yeah, this the Seventh Circuit's like, I see what they wrote in Bruin, but I just don't care. And that's how the Second Amendment issue is going to be. They're going to keep passing this up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's going to keep issue rulings, and they're going to do it until all the conservatives on the court are dead. So then they'll just go ahead and ban guns. Flat out. Like, it's a long game. The progressives are very good at it. They've been playing it a long time. And I see Askilles in the Rumble chat. He says, we probably need a good Bruin enforcement case. It doesn't matter, though. Here's why it doesn't matter. It's the function of preserving a freedom, a liberty from something, versus the, how do I put this? The inexorable push against that freedom. It's a push that will give, and there isn't a push back. There is no regulation goes in one direction, y'all, against a thing. So if you're eternally trying to regulate guns and the opposing principle is non-regulation, then the question is, well, is this regulating sufficient to encroach on non-regulation? The answer should always be yes, because if there is regulation and the other position is non-regulation, the answer is just yes. Any encroachment is too much. But we're long past that. So then it's just a poke and a prod to place the needle in a different spot until it pierces the skin a little bit more. And eventually the bleeding is too much and you hemorrhage and the freedom is gone in all capacity other than words. So there isn't a way to push back, because how do you push back against regulation? The full pushback is to the default position of don't. But we stopped being don't a long time ago and started being don't unless. And that's not what's written down. That's not what's in the Constitution. It does not say shall not be infringed. Well, unless these other things happen. And so there will always be an unless once you've allowed the first one in. And there will always be an unless once you've allowed the first one in. With that, it's just a matter of pushing until you get either a favorable court or a court that just won't come back and say no. But if they come back and say no, what happens? Okay, they just write a new law that's slightly different, pushes in a different way or less far, but with the same ends in mind. It's really fucking irritating, isn't it? Because remember what the basic words say is just shall not be infringed. And we're going to read some of the opinion and you'll just see like what that means. It means effectively fucking nothing. And there are human reasons behind it, right? Like a bunch of dead people. It's not actually that many. I don't mean to be too I don't mean to be too crude about it. It's not that many dead people in the grand scheme of things. If it's your dead person, it sucks. Right? Like, obviously, feel terrible for someone who loses someone to a shooting of any kind, a mass shooting, doesn't matter. Like, that person's worse off because their kid got killed with 8 others. It's like, well, but that kid got killed by themselves. Like, that's pretty fucking bad. Like, no, how could you send your kid to a school where there could be a mass shooting? We got to ban guns. Like, how do you send your kid outside? Kids get killed outside too. But they try to make it into this issue. It's a fear generator. But the human question pops up every time. How does a judge go home and watch the news that they could have prevented with the right decision, right? And say, man, if I had just banned guns, this guy wouldn't have had it. I mean, it's not true. It's a stupid human thought to think that your decision is self-important enough to have eliminated that gun from that person's possession at that time. But that is part of what they see when they make these decisions. Because as I talked about yesterday, judges are very, very self-important. They're told constantly that they have sway over people's lives. And they do. And so then they start to believe that everything they do holds sufficient sway. And then they hold themselves responsible for things well beyond their control. So we're going to explore these topics. There's some other ones. I got a story about Abercrombie and Fitch. There's sexual exploitation of men from the ex-CEO. I don't know what happened there. There's always more to talk about with Trump, but I'm kind of tired of it for now, so we'll probably hold off. And who knows, maybe I'll just get generally pissed off and start talking about freedom. I don't know, guys. It's hard on days like the abortion issue frustrates me as a pro-life person in general. But I'm also very much in the camp that believes that the abortion is a state right issue as the Constitution is written. I'm not saying that it morally should remain there, but just as the Constitution is written, I think it's a states' rights issue and it should remain there until they have the fucking balls to change the Constitution, which no one wants to do anymore. No one wants to do that because we abdicated our responsibility to modify our governing doctrine along with an evolving understanding of the world. We let the judges take it. We frankly let the judges take it. You've probably heard me bitch about Marbury versus Madison several times. But I can never bitch about it enough. The reason we don't have ongoing constitutional amendments to refine what is meant to match the times, to rein in Congress, to expand the powers of government where we believe it was necessary. The reason we don't is because in Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court said, you don't need to do that anymore. We'll do that for you. And outside of a few very rare instances where massive expansion of governmental understanding took place, Reconstruction being the biggest one. But outside of a few of those instances, we really don't see amendments of import marrying up to evolving social narratives. And that's weird. The founders believed that the document would effectively be new within 30 to 50 years, and it wasn't. And it's remained old, but that's because we've subverted our own system. So I don't know. We'll see if we get into that. It's a very deep topic that has to do a lot with how you perceive how government should function. And I know that I'm probably in the minority of lawyers in the United States on this issue. And that's because lawyers in the United States tend to be bitches. I'll say it. I'll say it. And I have no faith in most of them. But they're very happy with the system that we have because they get to litigate in gray areas that shouldn't exist. So, with that, we're going to get into this issue, I suppose. Did you guys doing anything cool lately? Having a good time out there? I am, to be clear. I'm still waking up. I'm so fucking tired today. You can't get Rumble to work? I mean, it's working for me. But I'm not sure if they're having some sort of other issue. But let's jump into this. We'll see. I'll try to add some levity here and there. There are times, guys, where the topics are dark and depressing, depending on your perspective. But I'll try and add some levity in. We'll try and laugh at some stuff. If you have some funny stories, go ahead and send them to me somehow. Maybe I'll see them. But yeah. Says firearms are for pussies. That typed, I own firearms because there are a lot of pussies out there, if you catch my drift, would rather go back to swords and duels. I've been watching a lot of knifing videos on Instagram lately. Because again, you gotta get Instagram. You gotta get your reels reprogrammed. You gotta stop getting these hoes with their see-through dresses so you can see their lips hanging down with the backlight or whatever. Like that, you got to get that off your timeline, and you got to get the true patrician timeline that I have, which is most videos have either Arabic, Chinese, Russian, or Spanish captions. And once that happens, you know someone's about to get fucking killed, like right in front of you. You're going to watch somebody get stabbed a whole bunch. You're going to watch a motorcycle get crushed by a truck. You're going to watch someone's arm get put in a hydraulic press. It's, yeah. That's what you're going to see once you get your algorithm right. But I've been watching a bunch of like videos of like random knifings. Those are always in Spanish, of course. And, man, I don't want to get fucking stabbed. I don't think people really want to go back to swords and shit. That looks really rough. That does not look like a pleasant way to deal with shit. How is it allowed? Like, I mean, I know, don't get me wrong. I don't think it should be disallowed. I grew up with, like rotten.com and gore.com and all that shit. Like the nastiest, worst, most vile stuff on the planet, just broadcast to the world. If you wanted to consume it, like it best gore or whatever, like if you went to go find those things, you could. And that was the era of the internet where, like I kind of grew up. And so I don't mind it. But like with all of the censorship of everything on these fucking apps all the time, then they're like, here, watch this guy shoot himself in the fucking face. Like, wait, what? Like, oh, watch this guy napalm a child. Well, oh, okay, I guess. I don't need feelings anymore. Take that. Says coming to Wilmer November 16th, a Thursday. Any chance of meeting up at O'Neill's around 2:00 for an hour? Maybe. Take that. Tell you what. Message me on either Instagram or Twitter. Or you can email me, ricada.org. Make sure you say, I'm from YouTube, super chatted you about coming to visit. And if I can make it happen, I'll definitely meet you there. But yeah, I love, by the way, if any of you do come to the Wilmer area ever, incidentally, and you do want to meet up, like I meet up with people when they come through. I love doing that. Just hanging out, grabbing a drink, laughing a little bit, and then moving on is always fun. So Here we go. Let's pull up this Ohio story. I guess let's just kick this off. Ohio abortion. God, look, I'm going to do this is not a commentary on you and your values, whoever you are out there, okay? Because I've said for a long time, I see logical and rational arguments around abortion and how it should be managed by government. God damn, is it hard not to just say, look at how happy these hoes are to have haunted wombs. Like, and they always look like this. They're like, yes. It's like, I cannot get into the mindset. It is so fucking foreign to me to get into the mindset of being like, yeah, baby, I'm going to kill this fucking infant. Like, I just cannot. That's you. That's you. That's a part of you. I know it might also be a part of Ray Ray or whatever, if you even know his name. I know it may be like you just can't respect yourself enough. If you look at that little kid that comes out, it's like not quite the same shade, but like I get that, but Jesus Christ, man, that's half of you. Fuck. I've known a couple women who have gotten abortions. I probably know more. Like, I do, I'm sure, but I don't know that they have. Right? There's the difference, right? Like you probably know women who have gotten an abortion, but you probably don't know about it because a lot of them don't talk about it for various reasons. The unspoken reason, or the off hushed reason, maybe, is because for many of them they do carry a degree of shame. And I want to be kind of clear on this. It is not my goal or intent to shame women who make that choice. I think that women who do are often the victim of a lot of circumstance and a lot of propaganda, and shit. Like, I made some shit decisions in my life. Like, we fuck up from time to time. So I don't really make it my job to do that. Just to a random lady who gets an abortion because of circumstance. I would prefer that she didn't. But hey, that being said, there are truly horrifying people out there who do shout their abortions, who are proud of them. And that scares the shit out of me. But I do think that though I don't personally have any desire to shame somebody over that. I mean, unless they make it like, if you're going to be like, yeah, I got a bowl full of those aborted fetuses at home. Like, okay, well, you're gross. But, just kind of the normal, your average abortion consumer, I guess. I don't have any desire to get in their fucking business. You do what you do. We all do what we do. You'll carry that. But I think a lot of people do find it shameful for themselves. I think the women I've talked to have had them. Many cases of severe long-term regret and shame, and a period of for many of them a long period of healing had to occur. And I think that's that's enough. Like, I don't have to add to that. Like, sometimes that's how it goes. But when I say that shame still exists, that's what I mean. Not that someone is out there like, yeah, Jezebel or whatever. Like, I don't care to do that. Unless they're truly fucking evil. But that being said, I cannot get into this mindset right here. It's like, lady, You're getting up there in age. How many abortions do you even have left? Like, she's like, I'm gonna find out. Like, what the hell? This lady back here is happy that, oh wait, you can't see my mouse. This one back here is just happy she gets to eat more now. But like, she's like, I heard there was croissants here. But maybe it's been so thoroughly and sufficiently framed for them as some triumph of right. But at some point, isn't there just an easier option? Like if you just don't want one, like you just don't want a baby, whether it's right now or ever, there are ways to deal with this. Like you just drink the Flint water or whatever. That's fine. I don't know. I don't know, man. Uh, it's wildly troubling. It's wildly troubling to see people cheer what should be a deeply grave decision based on massively impactful factors, like the erudite and astute discussion around abortion is always weighed down with the concrete blocks of rape and incest and victimhood and oppression. And the reality is just like, actually though, I was in a club bathroom and wanted Coke. Can we stop pretending for a fucking second? Like, you know, all the cameras are off. All the cameras are off, goddamn bitches. You're just in the bathroom at the club and you wanted Coke. And while you bent over to snort some, you said, I'm not wearing panties. Just don't bump me too hard. Like, I got it, okay? We all know it's somewhere north of 90% of abortions are abortions of pure fucking convenience. It's abortion as contraception. It's a horrifying thought to me. My wife and I wanted 8 kids. Well, let's rewind the tape there. My wife wanted 8 kids, and I was like, okay. I mean, I have a sibling. 8 sounds like a lot. But we'll see how it goes. But that was that was kind of our we're just married. Well, I think we discussed it a little bit before getting married, but we're just getting married. We're just starting life. We're so young, and you see so much opportunity ahead of you. She comes from a large family. And I like I said, I have one sibling. And so, but I don't care. Like, doesn't, I mean, the hell. I think past a certain point, you're just trying not to die every day. But our initial plan was for more. We ended up with 5. We did have 3 miscarriages early on that I've talked about. I'm not going to belabor those. And I'm not one of those people who's like, well, if we wouldn't have had those, we would have had 8 kids. Cause like, you don't know with each one of those, how life would have changed going forward. It's impossible to tell. But that being said, we had 3 miscarriages. Then we had a long period of having real trouble getting pregnant. And then we had our 5. Once the floodgates were open, they were open. It's great. And they're fantastic. But every single one of them, all 8 of those, were very conscious and intentional decisions for us. We went into it with import and desire and compassion and hope. The choice to bring life into the world. These weren't flippant pregnancies for us. None of them could have possibly been. Everyone was a desperate plea to heaven. Please, especially after those first three, please let this one work. I can't even express to you the joy of our first child being born after all of the issues that plagued, our early life together. To see people discard life like it's a bad pack of cigarettes or something is so foreign to me. It's deeply, deeply disturbing because it's not a one-off. It's not like, well, there's one sociopath out there who's just like, well, whatever, they don't matter. None of this matters. It's a huge number of people who just look at life as if it isn't anything. And that the granting and taking of it was always within their possession. It's not. It's not. What? What's up? Just a second, guys. Hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. The youngest daughter had a open the blinds in their bedroom. So they needed help bringing them back down. Not a big deal, but kind of help those kids so they can sleep. So with that, just kind of getting back to it for a minute. And I don't want to sit and belabor the morose aspect of this topic. I really don't. I don't want to give the depressing speech that I'm giving. But blissfully have not had to talk about abortion for a long time. For a very long time. And it's a subject that to me is so bewildering that people can so flippantly enter into the decision to thrust life into their bodies and then to expel that life without a care or a thought for what it could be for them, for the life itself, for someone else. I mean, in the gayest of ways, we all meet people who matter so fucking much to us. And if any of them had been cast off in any capacity, our lives would not exist or be completely different. And it's stunning to think that people would just rob the world of that. To me, it's stunning But again, I guess that's the difference from people who have desperately wanted children and had to spend years and emotions and cascades of life choices to get them into the world, to see these women with abortions that rival body counts of hoes it's unreal. Entire football teams haunt some women's vaginas. And here they are cheering it. And the discussion that always happens in public is this very sanitized discussion about women's rights and over the autonomy of their bodies and their right to choose when they engage in this endeavor of motherhood, and how it can be thrust upon them and forced upon them in some way that they don't consent to. Blah 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 blah. It's all assault. Everything's assault. The patriarchy's assault. Them getting fucked in a bathroom is assault because they just couldn't stop themselves from getting whatever. And please understand, if you are someone who has had an abortion for whatever reason, I legitimately don't judge you. I don't understand our society's penchant for making it flippant. And I don't understand people's elated status when something like this goes on. But at the individual level, you know, I try to have as much compassion for people as possible. I don't think that, you know, just completely denigrating people who've made a choice that it may not fully sit well with them, is the best approach to everything. But that said, the discussion is so divorced from reality that it's embarrassing that we have it anymore at all. But we do. And we do for a very specific reason that recently happened. And that was, of course, the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the return of abortion as an issue to states, as is proper, in my opinion. I do believe that states are supposed to be petri dishes of rights and laws and regulations that are wildly different from each other. And I don't see anything that suggests in the Constitution that access to abortion is something that is contemplated even in the slightest. So I don't think that Roe was properly decided. Now, does that mean that I don't think there's a constitutional place for abortion or non-abortion, as it may be, in the United States Constitution? No, that's not what I mean. In fact, I think that there's fully permissible grounds to have a constitutional amendment to rule one way or another on abortion. I would prefer it to be a pro-life ruling or a pro-life amendment to do so. And I think that would be fully in place in the structure of the Constitution. But when we don't have it, when we don't have that spelled out, I don't think we get to infer that it's some sort of right. I don't think we get to just do that, and that's what they did. But now, since it is returned to the states, and by return to the states, what it simply means is the natural state of things, which is that in America, all things are legal until they are not, including abortion, including murder, including rape, including theft, including everything is legal until it is not legal. There has to be a statute prohibiting an activity, which is why it's a question of legal or of making abortion illegal rather than making abortion legal. Abortion has always been legal, except in places where it was not. And it's such a weird sort of status. Now, the caveat, of course, to that little rant is it's easy to say abortion's legal because there's not a specific statute outlawing it in some states. However, it does have some overlap with other statutes. And that really gets down to the question of what is a person? What is the taking of a life? What are all these questions? And this is why we really do need, in my opinion, constitutional guidance on it at a federal level. that should have happened a long time ago, because our understanding of gestation, of human development is so wildly advanced, even from Roe versus Wade, that that it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine that in the time of Roe versus Wade, almost no one had seen an ultrasound, right? At the time of the decision, ultrasounds were very, very new, and had not really, like, if you go look at an ultrasound from 1972 and you go look at an ultrasound from now, it's not even comparable. The differences in what they look like, and ultrasounds now look like bullshit. You're looking at them, it's like, look, there's an arm or whatever. I'm like, are you sure that's an arm? Like, maybe they're gifted. You have no idea. It's this weird blobby thing. It's done this like cross section sort of scan, just the function of how it works, and it takes years of training to properly read ultrasounds, and they show up to us, and we're like, yeah, oh, cool, that's the heart ventricle or whatever, and it is neat, but if you go back, like, the resolution on ultrasounds is dramatically improved, and these judges may not have even seen an ultrasound. The understanding of human gestation would have been taken from literal stillborn babies at various phases of development, or from women who died with a baby in utero with a roughly known conception date that they would then preserve and estimate, the gestational age and put it in there. And people would not actually see these things at the same rate that you do now. Now you can go online, you can see human gestation, you can see what a baby looks like from conception day, basically. I just hold off the jokes all the way through where they want to have late-term abortions, right? Up till the time that it goes to full term and would be coming out of some part of some lady, right? You can see that, and you can see it's a human. But for a really long time, people kind of had lived in the dark on this. And most people just didn't think about it, because why would you? You wouldn't have to even know anymore. But yeah, and I see Wolvenar says, Nick, they're far better than what you seem to even know now. Now, I know I've actually seen, we had one of our babies, or maybe two, we did the 4D ultrasound, which is like a really high res, like true to life image. Is fucking crazy to see those. Are black babies black in the 4D ultrasounds? Just thought of that. Seems very racist if they're not. But that going on, like, no, I know those are there, but I'm still talking about the traditional ultrasound. Why do they default to that yellowish color? No, as you go through this sort of look back at the time of the decision was made, you'd think they were living in a fucking Stone Age. Like, if you talk to them, it'd be like a Bill and Ted's goes and gets gestational experts from the fucking Dark Ages and calls them judges. Like, these people are not learned on the subject. They don't know anything about it. And our understanding of medicine and life and development is so, so different, even in the past 40, 30, 20 years, 20 years. I think back to our first kid, our kid's about to turn 16 years ago versus our last child who's 6. That decade is a massive change in all of these things that we saw firsthand through all of the different pregnancies. And it's like, you go back to 1972 and they're making this decision. It's like, these are not the people to make this decision. Judges should not be answering this question. I don't know that Congress should either, but at least they're elected. At least there's debate. At least there's the process of amending the Constitution. If we're going to enshrine this as a right granted by God and recognized by the government, then we can go ahead and do that in a very intentional way. But it wasn't done that way with Roe. And Roe definitely needed to be overturned. But abortion was legal, except where it wasn't, or except where you interpret the law against something like murder or manslaughter to include an unborn child. And, there are ways around that, but hey, Why bother when you could just have 9 judges decide it for literally everybody in the fucking country? Now we're stuck with the reality of what this looks like, though. And it does look like this. It looks like a bunch of haggard harpies cheering desperately at the opportunity to get stabbed one last time. And I don't mean in the way that they do, but to go through and to have some doctor come and suck out one of their mistakes. Like they're so fucking happy for it. And it's weird to me, but they always are. The activists on this issue are some of the worst people on the planet, in my opinion. Again, I have a very different view of the average person going and trying to get their life in order, even if they make the wrong decision. But the advocates and the activists on the issue are always disgusting. But let's see what this says here. And then I'll get out of the morose topic and into the more foundational questions of federalism. Ohio will become the latest state to enshrine reproductive rights in its state constitution. And of course, they've got the best marketing, reproductive rights, as if this has anything to do with reproduction. It's specifically anti-reproductive. CNN projects continuing a winning trend for abortion rights advocates since the overturning of Roe versus Wade. With the passage of ballot measure 1, Ohio will be prevented from restricting abortion access before fetal viability, which doctors believe to be around 22 to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Fetal viability should be a diminishing standard. Fetal viability, if it is actually kept true to medical advancement, will eventually be 0, right? Like, because eventually we'll have Star Trek and we'll just beam the baby out of the womb, right? Like we'll do that. That's on a long enough timeline, fetal viability is conception. But 22 to 24 weeks of pregnancy, sure. That's the current fetal viability. We've had babies born as young as 20 weeks and 5 days, I believe. But this is kind of the standard. Now, fetal viability was the standard under Planned Parenthood versus Casey for a very long time, although fetal viability still seemed to extend to 26 to 28 weeks, even though it had long since passed that. Oh, we got a couple super chats I need to read real quick. Trom2CH2 says, in Ohio for 2020, Trump got 3,154,834, and Biden got 2,679,165. The no for abortion got 1,623,187. The yes got 2,069,091. Half of the right showed up for this vote, so that's why we failed. Also, Ohio is 11 million people. Dark Luce says, concur with the other super chat. No ground game for Republicans and a lot of disillusioned voters on the conservative side from 2020 due to viewing it all as rigged. A lot of defeatism too. Ellie Fan says, I need taking time to exercise shaming. Go for Big Guy says, what do you think of sitting a federal minimum maximum limit on abortion, like no abortion after 15 weeks? Let me be very clear on what you can do with an amendment is you can just decide no abortion at all. And I would have no problem with that. Just do the amendment. And frankly, they could make an amendment that says abortions up until 10 years after birth. Like they can do that. They can take any issue they want and they can put it in the Constitution through an amendment. And an amendment to the Constitution cannot be really undermined by an existing clause. Like it literally amends it out. There is some sort of caveat to try and prevent that, but you could just amend that out too, in theory. So, you can do whatever you want. I obviously would prefer they not allow abortions. That's just my default position. I know it's complicated and very hard. It makes some people's life difficult, but life isn't always easy, so too bad for you, I guess. But yeah, they can do whatever. I would prefer them to ban abortions entirely at the federal level through a constitutional amendment, not through a court ruling and not through some stupid law. I don't think that Congress alone has the power to pass a law to be that restrictive, personally. But here we go. After viability, the state can restrict abortion access unless the patient's life or health are at risk. The vote is yet another sign that abortion access is a key issue for voters across party lines. Even a state like Ohio, which has trended Republican in recent elections, abortion access isn't just a winning issue with voters. It's a fundamental right that impacts every aspect of their lives. They always have these fucking names too. Minnie Tamaraju, the president of Reproductive Freedom for All, an abortion rights group, said in a statement, Ohioans now have constitutionally guaranteed this right, and the nation is watching. It's also a blow to the state national abortion opponents who had hoped that their investment in the odd year election would help turn the tide after losing a half dozen abortion-related ballot initiatives in 2022. Abortion opponents in Ohio vowed to keep fighting. Following Tuesday's result, they attributed their loss to millions in outside money that flowed into the state and the ad campaign run by proponents of Issue 1. Though abortion opponents were outraised, both sides received help from around the country. We stand ready during this unthinkable time to advocate for women and the unborn, just as we have always done. Protect Women Ohio, the main group working to oppose the ballot initiative, said in a statement, we persevered for 50 years to overturn Roe versus Wade. Ours is a movement that has always endured and always will. As with the Second Amendment, though, you have a fundamental problem with the two positions and how the dynamics of this stuff works out. The default position is, or the life position is not having an abortion or not having abortion allowed. The other position is having some level of abortion allowed, which is a compromise down from the absolute. And so if the absolute exists and the position is always a compromise, it's just a matter of compromising by inches rather than miles. And compromising by inches has shown to be one of the most effective political strategies on the long timelines. Just look at how different we are than what we've ever been in history across the earth. Compromising by inches wins the war every time, because of course it does. Of course it does. At the center of the debate over Issue 1 was Ohio's 6-week abortion ban, which was blocked by a court last year, but is being considered by the state Supreme Court, which won't matter anymore. Abortion rights advocates argued that the only way to stop the law, which is no exceptions for victims of rape or incest, was to pass Issue 1. This, of course, is the most disingenuous argument of all. And one of the problems that Republicans have, on one hand, this idea that victims of rape or incest are primary consumers of abortion rather than something around 1% or less of abortions are resultant of rape and incest victims. But let's talk about this issue really quickly. First of all, it's almost nobody. It's almost nobody. That being said, it is a serious issue. However, using victims of rape and incest as an abortion shield just allows an avenue for abusers to be protected, because it always does allow the avenue for abusers to be protected. Similarly, the critical issue is just lie. Like, if you want the abortion, they just lie. They just say they're a victim of rape or incest. Many of the times, you know, there's some prohibition versus an actual like investigation into the validity of that rape or incest claim, which, by the way, is kind of like, I hate to say it, but that's the position of keeping men away from false accusations, because trust me, that free access to abortion is much more important than a random guy's reputation that they are happy to trash to preserve their own dignity in the issue. And yes, this does happen. The false rape or incest claim for the purpose of receiving free contraceptive care is not new. It is not novel. It is not out there or outlandish in any way. It is an ongoing feature of that. But that being said, let's just provide the converse criticism of it. It's effectively fucking nobody. So what you do is you carve out a caveat for victims of rape and incest that relies on some burden to produce something to solidify the accusation. But we're talking about effectively zero. You're talking about amounts of women victimized and pregnant in such a way that are so low as to effectively shut down every abortion center in the country. They just can't sustain the numbers with victims of rape or incest who are impregnated and want an abortion. They can't do it. Only like all of the data shows how few people it is. And abortion is a business of volume that is supported by government dollars. And abortion can become a very small cottage industry that is done in hospitals with reporting requirements that are overseen by the regulatory nature of hospitals rather than abortion clinics, which get special carve-outs that don't have any oversight, which don't have really fucking anything going at all. They just, it's a revolving door of government paying for women to execute unborn children. But if we allow the caveat of rape and incest victims, and Republicans are so staunchly against this because they're like, we don't want to give a millimeter. I understand. But this issue wins the argument for so many people who would otherwise say we don't want abortion. And they will always picture that every woman walking through the door is a victim, even though almost none are. But hey, in contrast, abortion opponents argued that the measure went too far and would prevent the state from enacting a consensus bill with exceptions. Republican Governor Mike DeWine, who signed the 6-week ban into law, campaigned heavily against issue 1 and shot an ad urging Ohioans to vote no. In August, Ohio voters defeated a measure that would have raised the threshold for passage of ballot initiatives to change the state constitution from a simple majority to 60%. The measure was viewed as an attempt to block the abortion rights amendment, and its failure was seen as a sign that full amendment would pass. So yeah, all they had to do is a simple majority to amend their constitution, which is kind of crazy to think about. According to preliminary results from CNN's exit poll, roughly 6 in 10 voters who turned out for Tuesday's election expressed negative feelings about the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. About 3 in 10 said abortion should be legal in all cases, and about a third said it should be legal in most cases. Anyone who has a problem with the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, let me say this in the nicest way I can. As far as on the legal issues underlying and underpinning Roe versus Wade and its foundation, if you disagree with the decision to overturn it, you're a fucking moron. And there's no way around it. Like, you can still believe that abortion should be a protected right. The overturning of Roe versus Wade was proper on the law. It was proper on the facts, and it was proper on constitutional history. And anyone arguing otherwise literally is an idiot. And there's no way around it. I'm sorry. If you support Roe versus Wade as the thing that found a constitutional right for abortion to always have existed in the face of all evidence, in the face of all jurisprudence, in the face of all reality, and to similarly ignore any notion of property rights existing in the unborn, any notion of the right to life needing to be protected at some level that conflicted with this fantastical right that they created out of nothing, then you're dumb. Or you've been lied to and are still dumb, because all of the information is out there. And that's a real damn shame that so many people have become so properly indoctrinated by the ad campaign about Roe versus Wade. The ad campaign about Roe versus Wade is almost better than the ad campaign around Jews. Like, it's crazy how good they were at advertising abortion as some sort of sacred right that we've always had as humans, and especially in the terms in which abortion occurs. Like, it's not like women are going out and drinking witch hazel or whatever and spitting out some deceased thing. They do it in the shame of their own bathrooms. Like, that has been a thing that's been around basically forever, right? Like, women would always go to some person, get something that they could mix up, ingest, and it would induce some sort of horrific reaction that would kill their unborn child. That's really hard to make illegal. That's really hard to get rid of a self-inflicted abortion. But the idea that we're like enshrining the right to go to a doctor who's going to shove a bunch of rods into your cervix, open it up, and then vacuum out the fetus with a Hoover is so far from reality and so far from American historical jurisprudence that they convince people that this is a thing that the founders like would have imagined or even considered to be proper is silly. But hey, they did. They did. But I don't know how to say it in any other way. There's no pulling punches. It really is a testament to how good Ginsburg herself said Roe versus Wade was improperly decided. And Ginsburg was a huge proponent of abortion and abortion rights. She didn't want to overturn it. She just recognized that it was an improper decision. And of course it was. It's a fiction created in a political narrative that largely dealt with, well, in part racism, but that's okay because, don't mention the whole race thing with abortion. Let's skate right over that one. Skate because not many black people play hockey, so they're probably not very fast. And the one who did killed that guy. So that's, I guess that's something. Despite making up 1% of the NHL, he's responsible for 100% of the murders. That's a whole other story. But yeah, abortion is one of the most heavily weighted subjects that we have out there that is so divisive, so popular, and so overtly racist that it's amazing. I mean, if you want to see, like, you want to talk crime stats, you can 1350 all day. Go to those abortion stats, and my goodness, they are putting up Chinese gymnast numbers. All right. Okay. Let's briefly talk about this, then we'll switch to Rumble. Look, I mean, we all know what happened, right? So abortion is solidified in Ohio, and I can drone on for days about like how foreign of a concept it is. I could go on about the degradation of society, the value of life, but at the same time, like, how can we be a society who claims to value life when we when we just allow places like Chicago to exist in the way that they do? We venerate and honor murder as a state function all over the place. We're all too happy to watch cops kill people and be like, yeah, that was good, they're justified. And we go, but should they have been? Like, should that event even have occurred? Like, let's get beyond what happened. Let's get to the part where we question whether the state should be intervening so much in our lives that they're there to kill us so fucking often. We're a society, a global society that so fucking hates ourselves that we are willing to let every transgression against life exist. We should not be surprised about abortion. So I can talk about it forever. Oh, Ellie says, oh, where's your shaming? You were asking me for a shaming. Oh, well, I'll get you in just a second. But that being said, this isn't about that. This is about a serious question of federalism that I want to get to that's more important than this. States have always had the right to do this. And states have had the ability to go farther than the federal minimum. And here's the weird thing. So Roe versus Wade initially sets it up as they cannot make abortion illegal in the first 2 trimesters. It's scaled back in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which has a sliding scale that leads to fetal viability that will in theory go down as technology progresses and our ability to have babies born earlier and earlier improves. So we have that as the thing, but states have always been able to enshrine further abortion protections. And this is based on this weird concept that the federal constitution is the bare minimum of guaranteed rights. Now, I want this to be critically ingrained here because this is what makes this so strange. So we've always recognized that Planned Parenthood versus Casey became the minimum. Roe versus Wade was the minimum, then Planned Parenthood versus Casey. You had to guarantee through fetal viability, but a state could guarantee abortion rights through birth. In theory, I think a state could maybe consider abortion rights some level past birth if they really wanted to, which is kind of scary. Except when you think about people maybe needing it. But that being said, they could do that. But think about what that means. The reason you could do that is because the federal constitution has to be the floor. But abortion is always sold as a conflict of rights, and the conflict is never involving the baby. That's the weird thing to me. It's involving the state's interest in the baby being a potential citizen versus the mom's interest in health autonomy or healthcare autonomy or whatever, federal privacy that no one else fucking gets. Like you and I can't go in and get healthcare privacy in the way that women can who want to abort babies. And women can't either unless you want to abort a baby. Then you can, but no one else gets to do that. And if you want medical privacy, just ask for your doctor to prescribe heroin for you. And they'll tell you all the reasons you can't. Oh, and go buy Sudafed from your fucking pharmacy and put yourself on a government list. Like legitimately, they can't put your name down on an abortion list because that would infringe your right to have an abortion in an impermissible way. But, you can't buy Sudafed. That's how fucking backwards that became. But what I want to get into here is the framing perspective issue, because the perspective is that the right that needs to be upheld to a minimum is the right of the mother, and it's never the right of the child. And let's not lie about what it is. It is a child. It's you can call it a fetus, you can call it an unborn baby, whatever you want, but it's a child. It's a person. From the moment of conception, it contains the building blocks that will make it life. And to suggest that at some point prior to whatever level of development you think is necessary is lacking of being a human life, there is no scientific evidence to support that. And there's all evidence to the contrary, because there are any number of adults who lack the basic form and function to meet what we would consider a fully developed baby. I mean, just look at Fetterman, for example. There are people who cannot communicate in any reasonable capacity. They don't have the capability of thought or speech or anything other than what someone puts in front of them on an iPad that is translating and closed captioning things for them. They don't have that. So what level of development would be required? I mean, you went to school, you work with people who don't meet that requirement right now. But we still consider them humans, and we still give them rights worth protecting. The unborn have never been considered in that way. And that's a real damn shame. That's actually part of the big problem that I have with this entire subject, is that the rights of the unborn in many ways were far more protected in the 14th and 15th centuries than they are now. As property rights started to be developed in English common law, the present right of ownership of property interests were granted to the unborn. And they still are. And again, not future rights, but present rights. Present property interests that exist are granted to unborn children, and those rights are completely disregarded and disrespected in the abortion decision. But property rights are the basis of all rights. Property rights are your right to life, is your property interest in your own body's autonomy and your ability to function and breathe. The idea that property rights are irrelevant or somehow lesser than some other right is ludicrous when you get down to who wrote our Constitution and what they meant when they wrote everything down. And it was, by the way, going to be life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, not the pursuit of happiness. But they didn't want people to be chasing blacks around. And that's a joke, but it's also true. But all that said, the philosophical question is, what if a state wanted to make a right that protected the unborn? They can now, and they couldn't under Roe. That's the main difference here. But the moment we set a minimum right, a minimum protection at the federal level, that's when every state will have to conform to that minimum or offer some greater protection. The weird thing is, if we were to ever get a constitutional amendment at the federal level on abortion, there'd be a real philosophical question about what rights could the state protect that would conflict with the federal right. Could they protect the unborn if they granted a right to abortion similar to Roe versus Wade, but then a state wanted to protect the right of the child further than the federal government? Those would come into conflict. And how would that pan out is a really interesting question, and it's never really been asked in that capacity. That bothers me. I wish I had more of a point to this discussion. I really don't. But the end all of this localized Ohio thing is this is what we wanted, though. This is what we wanted. This is what we asked for. This is the proper way to do things state by state, which means if your state is considering this issue, go fucking deal with it. Don't sit around bitching about Dominion or whatever. Go fucking vote on it if you care. Or maybe you don't. But I frankly am kind of glad to not have abortion be the single issue federal candidate question anymore. It really shouldn't be. But at the state level, you got to pay attention. You got to get out there. And Republicans, stop being such bitches and just go for it. Just go for it. But that being said, let's read the rest of the chats. Let's pop over to Rumble. Let's continue this stream over there where the getting is sweet and the pickings are slim or whatever. And then oh wait, we've got to shame Ellie. Elliot says exercise shaming. Well, that's cute, isn't it? I love how you couched that, and the emphasis is on couch because that's where you live. Couched it as exercise shaming. Well, what you really mean is how you spell exercise, which is YOU''RE space fat. You're getting a fat shame, not an exercise shame. Oh, you need an exercise shame? Writing exercise would be the most exercise you've done in a month. Jesus Christ. Get off that couch. Pick up the pen, write down, I will walk until you can again, and then get your ass to the gym. And while you do it, can you try not eating every loaf of bread on the planet that you pass? Also, I love you, Ellie. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. And by doing well, I mean I hope you're, taking in less calories than you burn. Nunya, welcome to Paralegal Status. Thank you. Fire PA says, what about the AI high school porn stuff? I talked about it a little yesterday. That's a really complicated topic. And I don't know. My ultimate conclusion for now is our legal system is not prepared for what AI can do. And it's going to take some real deep philosophical discussions as to what constitutes obscenity when there isn't physical exploitation of a subject. It's a tough question because it gets into a lot of stuff. Like, right, you go into the AI porn stuff and you can say, well, those are identifiable minors. So under current law, we go, if it's an identifiable minor, then that the presumption is that is impermissible child pornography. Outside of very, very extremely limited art exceptions that I don't really agree with. But hey, some people do art spreads of naked children. I don't fucking know why, but that is a thing that some people have done. The one area where I really do want to like chill the whole discussion of like improper pictures is I think there's a risk that a poorly or inartfully worded restriction would sweep up activity that is not gross or harmful. And I really mean like, a parent takes a picture of a baby or something that is completely devoid of any sort of disgusting intent or motive, and it's not distributed. Like, now, if they take a picture of a baby, even if it's devoid of disgusting motive, and then later distribute it to a bunch of people, like for money, they should be shot. Okay, like that's weird. But like parents take pictures. There's like a lot of people have a picture of themselves in a bathtub when they're 4 or something. I don't know. We avoided that because we found it strange. But other people don't. And I don't know that that's the activity I want people put in prison on a registry for specifically. So I just, that's the only caution I have around any of this stuff is like, how do we protect people from real, like legitimate, not bad things that they're doing, while also considering strongly what the purpose of all of this stuff is, and then achieving that purpose. I would be just fine banning AI images of children that are sexual and nude or whatever in nature. The fact that they're AI the only thing it eliminates is a present victim, like a present victim of specific exploitative abuse at the time of the creation of the media. But it doesn't prevent the ongoing damage that can be done through it to that person. And it doesn't prevent the propagation of the market for child sexual abuse material, which is one of the key goals of banning child pornography in general, is saying child sexual abuse material. We don't want it to we don't want to incentivize the market by increasing supply, which then drives demand in a supply side economic model. So if the theory is limiting supply, reduces demand, and also, makes tracking down infractions easier, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, by allowing AI to do this and create sexualized imagery of minors, even though that's not presently harming a minor, it still is driving the market. So the question is, what is the goal of our restriction on this material? Does are our goals that were the reasons for the laws that we have, are those still congruent with society's goals? I don't see why they wouldn't be. And then are we achieving those goals with how we manage AI? And can you even manage AI? That's a whole different question. But it's a tough one. Hellyfan says, what about the Nirvana baby pic taken by a neighbor? No, that was not taken by a neighbor. I mean, that was a professional picture that was done, if I remember right, from the lawsuit. And he keeps losing that lawsuit because they were compensated for the picture. He just wanted to be compensated more. But yeah. Todd L. Cole, thank you for the redacted or retracted super chat as well. And he says, Ohio also voted on legalizing marijuana. Which way would these voters go on abortion? I don't know that there's any rational tie to marijuana legalization and abortion at all, like, or marijuana consumption and abortion. Marijuana, I consider to be a roughly ubiquitous substance. I mean, obviously not everyone smokes pot, but enough people smoke pot that it is a household good across America, even while fully illegal. And that's the reason why legalization at the state level has actually been successful without the feds going after it, because they just can't. Because the reality is marijuana is unlawfully, it is really unlawfully classified. It does not meet its definition under the law and should not be regulated in the way it is. I know a lot of people don't like it, and that's good. It's fine by me. I mean, I've used it several times on local streams. It's a funny joke because, like, oh, how fast till Nick has to go to sleep? Great. But only when it was legal in Minnesota have I done that, by the way, just to be very clear before someone gets fucking stupid. When Minnesota accidentally legalized edibles, I thought that was the funniest thing. So I did a couple streams with those. And then after the legalization, I think I've done 2 local streams where I hit like a cartridge or whatever. Not my favorite thing, but funny enough for an occasional thing. I know some people get like really hooked on it. Some people really love it. Some people really hate it. I'm indifferent. My life is no better or worse with it existing or not existing. That being said, I don't see any overlap of that with the abortion issue at all. I don't think they're related. So, anyway, but what I was going to say is that the Category 1 Controlled Substances Act classification of marijuana is an absolutely absurd categorization. It's categorized as having no medicinal value, no alternative purpose, which is silly. Even if you don't like it, it's obviously an anti-nausea agent that is very, very good. It's a pain management. It's a pain management substance that is very, very effective with very low addictive properties, very, very low side effects and negative outcomes. And the entire opposition to marijuana comes from a long, long campaign of propagandizing it into something that it's not. How's it with Field of Greens? I don't know. I guess in theory, you could get one of those marijuana drinks and then dump Field of Greens in there. That sounds fucking awful. The marijuana drinks sound awful to me too. They also have a lot of THC in them if you drink the whole thing. For me anyway, I'm such a lightweight. It's not my thing at all. But the people who smoke weed in your country are thugs. The people who smoke weed in America is damn near anybody and everybody. Like, again, it is such a ubiquitous substance. It is in so many different households and has been for a very long time. And I just don't like, as weed became legal, the amount of people you found that had been using it for a long time and could finally say it was off the charts, because it's just been improperly categorized forever. But it was really good that the US government did that and created the cartel problem in Mexico. You're welcome, Mexico. For a while, we just helped out Colombia and Bolivia by outlawing cocaine. We just did that and really helped them develop their organized crime issue. But we just couldn't, we couldn't let you guys off the hook. We had to create a cartel state for you, and we did that by making marijuana illegal. You're welcome. We did it because we don't like Mexicans and we don't like black people. And if you think that that's a joke, go look up the actual history of the legislation, and you'll find out that it had nothing to do at all with the substance of marijuana and had everything to do with the perception about who was consuming it. At the time it was categorized as Category 1 controlled substance, they really, really, really didn't like blacks and Mexicans, and they thought that if they took their weed away, that they would just become productive members of society or whatever. Like, that was their goal. And they created cartels from that. So if any of your family has had their skin peeled off and strung up on their Christmas tree because, I don't know, they didn't pay their protection arrangement or whatever, how do you say you're welcome in Spanish? You're welcome. There you go. Happy racism from the United States. Fire PA says, happy election day, or as I call it, the GOP getting cucked day. Nick, can you fat shame the GOP and their leadership for being massive blobs of lard? No, Fire PA, because fat shaming is for people who want to change, and the GOP leadership doesn't. Sorry. I can't. With that, let's go over to Rumble, and we will get into this. We're going to get into this Second Amendment and Supreme Court issue. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out, by the way. If you want to follow over on Rumble, the link is in the description of the video. It's also in the live chat as a pinned comment. You can just click over there. Come join the Rumblers. That's a really gay name. Come join Rumble over there. And oh yeah, Rumble just had a major product announcement. It looks like a competitor to StreamYard. I am going to have to check it out very, very soon. I'm very, very interested in having another way to multi-stream that does not use StreamYard, and maybe maybe gives us some fucking control out of over audio processing, because there's so many things that would be better without StreamYard fucking it over. But with that, we'll see you over on Rumble in just a moment. If we don't see you over on Rumble, I'll see you tomorrow here, same time. Don't tell anyone. It'll be our secret. We'll see you there. Peace. Peace.